meme stock trading trend with its Wall Street Bets forum reaching a $10 billion valuation in its latest funding round. The company says it has already raised more than $400 million from Fidelity and plans to raise up to $700 million in total. This is Mole's plans to go public. Joining us right now is Reddit's co-founder and former executive chair, Alexis Ohanian. He is the founder of 776. Congratulations, Alexis, on just this, you knew it had blown up a long time ago, but it's blown up even more.
This is a great milestone, and don't get me wrong, all credit to a lot of really hard work and great people who are putting in the work, and obviously the Reddit community, which just continues to prove the point that community is one of the strongest assets a company can have.
How big a company do you think this can ultimately be?
I mean, look, I'm very, very long on the power of community, and I think one of the things we sort of lucked our way into back in 2005 was this reality. And so I think the sky's the limit. And I think every business is really now taking notice to the power of actually having an incentivized and motivated audience that isn't just sort of being used or mined for their information, but actually contributing to something much bigger than themselves.
How do you deal with misinformation at this point in the ballgame? I ask because clearly this is an issue on Facebook, but I would argue it's a real issue on Reddit, too. I spend time on Reddit, and there is legitimate information that's just factually untrue, whether it comes to COVID or other issues. And when it comes to issues like COVID, it's not just whether it's right or wrong. It has real implications.
Well, look, I can speak holistically, right? This is going to be the great challenge of, I think, this decade in many ways, because we have, the very real situation that the vast majority of people are now getting informed by sources that are, people just like them in many cases. And so as the traditional institutions have both lost a lot of confidence in the eyes of people, as well as just sort of gotten outmatched when it comes to sort of quantity and even sometimes quality of content. I don't have a good answer for this. I think at the end of the day, media literacy continues to be really important. I think there is absolutely responsibility for each platform to figure out where they draw those lines. I've obviously talked about that very publicly. Right. And I think ultimately we're going to have to find a way to navigate this together, because the end result is, we have a society right now, and you mentioned meme stocks. We have a society where across the board, people have lost faith in all the big institutions, whether it's financial or media, right, higher education, et cetera, et cetera. The list goes on. And technology is going to be a part of that new solution. But, it's all getting built literally as we speak.
One of the things that I'm concerned about, and I don't know what the answer is that there are a lot of people online, as you said, who don't trust the established players, experts, if you will, big institutions. And yet, as a result, they almost disbelieve anything that comes from them. And as a result, you have this sort of conundrum, this soup of misinformation where when you're trying to present factual information to people, and they almost instinctively decide that it's untrue when it is true. And if you're somebody like myself sitting in the seats that we're sitting in the media, or others that do this professionally, that think we're doing this in good faith, that think we've spent our careers trying to tell truths, if you will, how we're supposed to think about that, and also how you think about the psyche of the users that are on these platforms, because they seem to prop up each other, if you will.
And I think this is a great challenge. There are discussions on, science communities on Reddit, for instance, that are more rigorous and thoughtful than I would find just about anywhere, because it's actual scientists, actual practitioners talking intelligently and civilly and thoughtfully. But it's a spectrum, right? and I think we're at a point now where, at the very least, we can't get any less trust or faith in these big institutions. And I hope what comes out of this is we start seeing more built sort of from the bottom up, and technology does empower this in really interesting ways. What Substack is doing for a new wave of journalists who can build an audience and a relationship directly with their readers, as well as make a living doing it. And I'm not an investor in Substack, but I think it is a trend now of what is the sort of rebirth, I hope, of institutions, and they're going to be born from the bottom up. They're going to be born with a community of people who really feel a much closer one-to-one connection, as opposed to an abstract institution that you just have to trust. But believe me, I when it comes to this pandemic, I think we could have gotten a lot further had we had a lot more consensus and trust in institutions, and harder conversations, but thoughtful ones a lot earlier. And, you know, we're in this situation now where, like I said, I think we're watching technology enable what this next wave is going to be. The only thing I'm sure of is that community is going to be a core part of it, and it's going to be built from that bottom up. And it's the top down old school institutions that have the biggest challenge.
Shepard Smith here. Thanks for watching CNBC on YouTube.